All right, hi everyone. This is going to be part 3 of problem set 1. And in this part, we're going to introduce you to the if statement, which is a logic test. In this formula, you're going to input a logical statement. And if that comes out to be true, it's going to return one result. If that statement is false, it's going to return a different result. What I mean by that is I might say, if this value is greater than 500, say yes. If this value is less than 500, say no. So what it's checking for is looking to look at that value and say, this value is greater than 500. So it's going to return yes, because it is greater than 500, so that is true. If the value is less than 500, then the statement this is greater than 500 is false, and it's going to return and say no. So that's kind of what we're working with. And as I show you a few examples, it'll start to hopefully make some sense. So there's a few different types of logic statements. There's count if this. There's sum if this. There's do this if. But what we're going to do is just the basic level equals if. And what equals if does for us is whatever we type in after that, we can give it whatever input we want, and it'll do that for us. So what we want here are actually going to be four different sections. So you're going to have the data just like this, but these are four different things. So when you copy over this data to your problem set sheet, you'll have your first problem set, part 1 on the Excel file will look like this. You'll want to open up a new worksheet by hitting this plus sign in the bottom, and then copying this stuff over as you see fit. So starting with this part, I'm going to give you a little more autonomy over how you set up your spreadsheet in a logical ways. These are four different situations. This is, is this over budget or not? Right, we budgeted 800, we actually spent 921. Are we over or within our budgets? And if we're over budget, how much are we over by? So this is one thing here. On this one is a quantity discount. If the person purchases, between 1 and 10 units, they're going to get this price. If they're going to, and then if for this much, they're going to get a different price, and for this much, they're going to get a different price, and so on. So let's go ahead and put the prices on there. So we want these to show up based on the quantity we spend. In this one, we're going to input the grade point average, and then or the grade average for a course or for an assignment. For example, 90% is traditionally an A. 80% is a B, and that's what we want to show up. We want it to look and say, if I show an A here, or if I show 90% here, I want the grade to show up, the letter grade to show up as an A. And this one is going to be a commission issue. They had this much in sales, and depending on how high their sales were, they get an escalating bonus. So if they sell less than $500, they're going to get 7% commission. $500 to $1,000, you're getting 10%, and if they can exceed $1,000 in sale, they're getting 16%. So these are four different things. So as you copy these over, I want you to kind of start working on, do I want these one on top of each other? Do I want maybe to copy over these ones to here, and then maybe the next one side by side? Do I want to put a big border around it to show that they're different things? Do I want to put them very far apart from each other? And sort of setting it up how you think is a logical way to set this up to show that these are four unique things that have their own, their own checks on what they're looking for on this if statement. So you'll do that. You'll also, want to probably do some color coding of some kind to make this to help guide the eyes through what's going on. You might want to put your headers with one color. Maybe, I usually use a light green for my header, but maybe you find a color scheme or theme that works for you, that you like, and start building off of that. Something that you can, use and be your signature style, so to speak, right? As you're building spreadsheets for other classes, as you're building spreadsheets for, your office jobs or presentations or whatever it is you're going to use Excel or other spreadsheet software for, have a sense of style with it. I usually have the final values for things highlighted in yellow, and I usually have any data that I input manually in a light blue color, any formulas in a salmon color. But whatever you think looks good and is, helps the audience understand what's going on easily. So, I would say color coding the headers is a good way to do that. When I write a schedule, I might do every other line white, really light blue, white line blue, and that helps to differentiate the lines and helps to follow through, maybe a big budgeted thing or accounting or sheets or whatever, financial statements, what have you. But let's get started on this. I'm going to show you 3 of them, and I'm going to give you the formulas and all that. And so for the most part, your assignment on this is going to be, the style and the formatting. Right? I'm going to give you the formulas, but then this 4th one, I'm going to have you figure that out on your own as part of the assignment. So let's start with this one. So equals if I start typing equals if, then I can click equals if, and there's a few options, but I just want to double click that first one. And you can see what it says here. It'll be a little bit small in the font size. Unfortunately, I can't make that any bigger, but equals if, write the logical test. So I'm going to write the statement, comma, what do you want me to show if that value is true? If that's true, that logical statement, show this number or word or other value or other calculation. If that's false, so comma, if that's false, show this instead. So in this case, what we want to show here is words. If we went over budget, we want it to say over budget. And if we're within budget or under budget, we want it to say under budget, right? So our logical test is going to be if this actual amount right here is greater than, I can write a greater than symbol. If 921 is greater than 800, which it is, right? So I've gone over budget. Then if I write comma, then what value do I want to show if this is true? And that value is going to be the words over budget. Now, if you're going to write words, you need to put those in quotation marks as a good habit, because there's going to be some things that you look for that it won't check unless you put it in quotes. And so anytime you're writing words and not just clicking on a reference cell, go ahead and write those words in quotation marks. Okay. So if that's greater than, if the actual is greater than the budgeted, then I want it to show the words over budget. Comma, now you can see it puts this in bold, value if false. So if that's not greater, the actual is not greater than budget, meaning it's equal to or less than, then I want it to show within budget. I'm not going to say under budget because we want to include 800. 800 is not under budget, it's at the budget, right? So if it's not greater than that, we want it to say within budget. And at the end, we're going to close our parentheses and hit enter. And we can see here that 921 is greater than 800. And so it's showing over budget. Now, because I'm referencing these lines here to my left, if I copy this down to this next cell, it's going to copy the references down as well, which is great. And this next one, 324.98, well, that is less than 375. So I should say, if this worked correctly, I should see the words within budget. And I do indeed. I see within budget, over budget. And if you double check yourself, yep, 174 is more than 150. So I'm over budget. 128 is less than 150. I'm within budget. Fantastic. The next thing we want to know is if I'm over budget, how much am I over by? So this is going to be starting out the same. If this is, if this actual is greater than the budgeted, then I want it to show the difference. Otherwise, I'm going to show $0. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write equals if 921 is greater than 800, so it starts out the same. If that's the case, then I want it to show 921 minus 800, so the actual minus the budgeted. Otherwise, just show a 0. So I'm going to write comma 0, value of true is actual minus budgeted, value of false is 0, close my parentheses and hit enter. And we can see that indeed 921 58 is 121.58 over 800. That's you can do simple math there and see the difference. And if I copy this down, I should see 0 for these two because they're within budget, and I should see the difference here looks like $24.38. So let's see if we see that. We should see 0, 0, and then 24.38. We do indeed. And from here, you want to do some formatting. These are all dollar amounts. So if we highlight all of these, and what I did to hop over this section when I highlighted all those is I just held the control button to click on a separate area. I want to, and it's if you have a Mac, it's Command instead of Control. I want to change this to currency. I don't like accounting over versus currency because it gives you these dashes, but as long as you're doing a monetary value, it's fine. If you prefer the dollar signs way over to the left and then dashes instead of zeros, and you always want to use accounting and you're consistent, go ahead and use accounting if that's what you prefer. No knock on that. I just like the look of the currency if I'm using a sheet here, but over budget, within budget, maybe the accounting formatting might be more, might work better. And then from here, there's some extra stuff you can do to this. This isn't part of the logic test, but there are conditional formatting we can do to this to maybe color code and have it automatically show up for us. So I would implore you, if you feel comfortable with Excel by this point, look at conditional formatting and maybe say that, if these values are greater than 0 because it's over budget, have them highlight in red. And then it would just pop out and show, right here and here, it would just automatically highlight those red to show that they're over budget. Maybe not red with black font because it's kind of hard to see. Be aware when you're making formatting and choosing your your color choices. This bright red color, it makes it really hard to read what's behind there, right? So if you're gonna use a bright red, you might consider changing the font to white. At least you can read that. Colors that contrast with each other. All right, back to the logic statement. All right, for our next one, we're going to do a quantity price, and the price per unit that we pay is going to give a discount if we are to have a certain amount of units purchased. So anywhere from 1 to 10 units, we're gonna pay $30 a unit. Anywhere from 11 to 20, we're gonna pay $28 a unit. We're gonna get a $2 discount. And then if we buy 21 or more, we're going to pay $26. We're going to get another $2 discount per unit if we buy in bulk. Okay. So what I've done is I've got this highlighted up here at the top with the header, and I've changed these quantities to show that these are quantity discounts. And then this quantity we're going to change. If I write 21, then I want it to reference and say I'm going to pay $26 a unit. If I write 25, same thing. I want it to reference $26 a unit. But if I write 15, I want it to jump to here and say 15 times $28 a unit. I'm going to pay a little bit more per unit because I'm not buying as many. Similarly, if I only buy 8 of them, I'm going to pay $30 a unit. So I'm getting a bulk discount if I buy 11 to 20, and I'm getting more of a discount if I buy 21 or above. So we're just going to write a quantity in here. We're going to write 8, and then we're gonna have a total here, and it's gonna say to start with a little bit different formula because I'm not gonna start with a logic statement. Instead, I'm gonna say take the quantity and then multiply it by the if statement. So we're multiplying the quantity times price, so it's the price that has the logic test instead of the quantity. So we're going to now write our logic test. So quantity times if this quantity is greater than or equal to 21, because 21 is the next step up. If that's the case, then I want it to multiply by $26. So I'm just going to click on the 26 price per unit right here. Okay. Now, normally we would write comma value if false if that was our only test. If everything below 21 was, one value on its own. But in this case, we have another one. We have an intermediary value. And so as long as I'm writing them from the highest to the lowest, left to right, it's going to check them in that order. So if it's 21 or above, it's going to charge me $26 per unit. If it's 11 or above, then it's going to charge me $28 a unit. So what I can do next is, if B11 is greater than or equal to 21, then multiply it by $26. Now I'm going to write if another time, and if the quantity is greater than or equal to 11, because that was the next discount amount, then I want to multiply it by $28 a unit. And then finally, if neither of those is true, it's not greater than or equal to 11, then it must be under 11. I want to charge $30 a unit. And then I need to close my parentheses 2 times. You can see in black the outer one, in red the inner one. Hit enter, and it's going to charge me $240. Well, 8 times 30, because 8 is between 1 and 10. I should be charged $30 a unit. 8 times 30 is $240. Let's say I bought 20 of them. Well, 20 times 28 is $560. Fantastic. And let's say I bought 30 of them. 30 times 26 is $780. So everything is working as intended. And I might highlight the total in yellow. And I don't know that this color scheme works great. You probably find a better one there. But all right, we got through that one. And now let's look at our averages. Okay. So what I want here, and you'll want to probably change this cell, this average, to a percentage if it's not already before we start. But I want this to show, if it shows 90% or above, it should show an A. If I type 80% to 90% or 89.9%, it should show B. 70% or above, a C. 60% or above, a D. And anything under 60, I need it to show an F. So much longer logic statement, because that's actually 5 different things instead of the 3 things we had on the previous one. So let's get started, because after all, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. So let's start writing this logic test. All right, all right, let's start by writing, I'm going to write 75% here, just to have a base. And when I hit enter, after I write this whole thing, it should show the letter C. So writing 75%, and we're going to write equals if. And if this amount is greater than or equal to 90%, then I want it to show an A. And I'm putting any letters, I'm going to put those in parentheses. And then I'm not going to write a value of false. Instead, I'm going to write the next if statement. And the next if statement is if this amount is greater than or equal to 80%, then I want it to show a B, comma, if, so the next one. The next one says if this value is greater than or equal to 70%, comma, I want it to show a C, comma, if. Again, I'm not writing the value of false at any of these. I'm going to continue the value of true with multiple possible truths. And then finally, once I do this next one, I'm going to write value of false, meaning it's not going to be over 60%. Everything that's left, the field, it would be an F. So if this value is greater than or equal to 60%, then I want it to show a D. And finally, comma, if all of that's false, then I want it to show an F. And if you're not sure how many parentheses to put in, you can hit enter right now and it'll try to suggest it for you. And it's showing me 4 parentheses at the end, which I had 1, 2, 3, 4 different ones before the false, so that checks out. And do I want to accept this correction? Yeah, sure, that should work. Well, 75% is a C. Let's check 80%. Yep, that's a B. 90%, that's an A. 60%, that's a D. 59%, that's an F. So everything's working there. We got that one as well. And this is where, I'd probably want to do conditional formatting if this was a sheet that I was using to enter everyone's grades, to check for letter grades. I might want to do conditional formatting. And with conditional formatting, you can write text that contains. So I might say text that contains the letter A. I might do a fill of green, right? Okay. And then if I write 90%, then you can see that because it showed A, the conditional formatting is turning that A green. Fantastic, right? And then click on that same cell, click conditional formatting, and I might go to text that contains, and if it's defines letter B, then I might want, I don't know, we might choose a blue color, right? Sure. And I hit OK, and then if I write 80%, all right. And it would help me to just see by color all the way down a grade sheet of the whole class. Maybe I do yellow for a C, and orange for a D, and then red for an F. Those colors would make sense. Maybe there's a better color than blue for a B, but this is the kind of formatting you can do, not just highlighting the headers, but you can make conditional coloring. If you highlight all of these and you write conditional formatting and say highlight cell rules greater than 0. We'll do default red is light red with red text, and yeah, it works okay. And so it just pops up, and I could say on those two cells here, conditional formatting, highlight cells if it contains the word over, same thing. So it automatically is going to format those colors, which would make sense. And I might say, if the value is equal to 0, make it green, or if it has the word within, make it green. So there's lots of different ways you can nicely format spreadsheets in addition to the logic test, because the idea is that once you make this template for yourself, you can then copy this down for as many lines as you ever would need. And every project you do, you can write the budget amount to the actual, and you can see how much is over budget. And then you can total your over budget for the year, for the period at the bottom of that. And then, okay, where the over budget's at? Oh, they're red here, they're red here. So this last one, you're going to be doing on your own as far as the logic test goes. Won't grade you too harshly, since this is the first time you'll be writing a formula on your own, but there's 3 possible answers to each one of these. If the value is greater than 1,000, then it's going to be 16% of the sales. So your logic test can be a short multiplication formula as far as the value of truth. So if this is greater than or equal to 1,000, or sorry, over 1,000, so greater than 1,000, 16% of the sales. If it's greater than or equal to 500, 10% of the sales. If it's otherwise 7% of the sales. So from there, with that information, this is just a reference to show you the sales. If you wanted to type 0.07 here and 0.10 here and 6.16 here, and then reference these cells instead of typing in the numbers, that would probably be good, because then if you down the road change the commission value, maybe the base commission is 8%, it would auto update for you. So I implore you to always use reference cells instead of just typing 7% inside of the formula, because then you have to go back and edit the whole formula later on if you ever want to change the commission values, instead of just changing one cell and then everything referencing that cell gets changed automatically. All right, so I know this is a little bit longer of a video. You might see some editing jumps. I might decide to edit some of that stuff out, a few changes I made. So yeah, best of luck. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you in part 4.